don't need only to have a new station, a new high-speed rail station, but also to keep some services, that the station is not served only by 1 or 2 trains a day, but to some frequencies and to services, and also the quality of these services. And of course, as our colleague, Professor Becky Liu has mentioned also, where the station is located and its integration in the urban and regional scale. You can see here in this graph the different kind of services we have now, also thanks to the bypasses in Madrid, not stopping in the capital and connecting cities located in different lines. Also, you can see here the shuttles from Ciudad Real and Puerto Llano to Madrid, and also from Toledo to Segovia and Valladolid, and similar things happen from Lleida, Tarragona, and Barcelona in the green line, that are the shuttles connecting big metropolitan areas with smaller cities in the surroundings. So, focusing on the role of the high-speed rail services and not only on the infrastructure, we start to wonder to ask some key questions. Which is the role of the high-speed rail services? Are all the high-speed rail links similar between city pairs? Is the high-speed rail brand as a whole the same for all the cities? And if not, which are the regional implications of these differences? In order to answer these questions or to analyze this question, what we develop is a typology of city-to-city links served by high-speed rail connections. We proposed a clustering analysis considering both, to analyze this clustering analysis using the Cummins method, including the 274 direct links of city pair connections. We consider both territorial variables, such as the population of the cities connected and the railway distance between them. And mainly we focused on service-related variables, such as the frequencies, the commercial speeds, and the cost per kilometer. With these variables, we proceeded with the analysis, obtaining 8 different clusters, which can be grouped as a summary for this presentation, can be grouped in 3 main types of connections. The first are what we call the early stage links. They are the main high-speed rail connections implemented from the very beginning between big metropolitan areas, that is the large markets. Distance in Spain, in the scale of the Spanish country, they are distance around 400 and 600 kilometers, and they present high frequencies. In Spain, higher frequencies is more than 20 or arriving to 30 trains per day, more or less, are the highest frequencies we can find in between a city pair. And these connections are mainly oriented to business purposes, and they were implemented to compete mainly to the air transportation. The second group are the clusters derived from what we call the line effects, that is generated thanks to these intermediate stations, intermediate stops in the main corridors. There are the links between metropolitan areas and small cities in the lines connecting to these metropolitan areas. For example, the cluster 3, these cities are located very close and presents high frequencies in comparison to this early stage or to other relationships we are going to see in the next slides. This is the connection derived thanks to these regional high-speed rail services. And also we have the cluster 4 in the same group that includes cities connected that are more distance between them. So they don't benefit from these regional high-speed rail services, and so the frequencies are slightly lower, only benefiting from long distance services. And the third main group are the connections between intermediate, small or medium-sized cities located in the same or in different line, derived from both the line effects, intermediate stops in the same corridor, but also the network effects. That is, thanks to the bypasses of the capital of the country, connecting main corridors, connecting the different lines without stopping in Madrid and with no need to change the trains in the capital. So in this case, these are the rest of the connections in the high-speed rail network of derived connections that are not the main objective of the high-speed rail, but are derived connections of this line and network effects. So they present low frequencies in these city pairs, and in some cases slightly higher because they benefiting from other long-distance connections with a different purpose that they stop in intermediate stations. So thanks to this previous analysis, we have seen that not all the links branded as high-speed rail in Spain fit into the same profile, not at all. And it implies the multiple roles developed by the high-speed rail system with regard to different mobility patterns. Continuing with this analysis, if we analyze these graphs, the first one representing the number of links included in each kind of cluster we have worked, the second one representing the population that could be involved, so the population of the cities connected, and the third one, and especially this one, the third graph, that represents the ridership, right, the real ridership, the real travelers attractive involving in each type of cluster. We can observe that, of course, the earlier stage connections connecting the biggest markets are those with the highest number of travelers. But also they arrived, you can see here, to more between cluster 1 and 2, they arrived to more than 50%, 55% of the travelers of all the highest speed rail network. But also the relationships between small cities and metropolitan areas have a high share, reaching more than the 35% between cluster 3 and cluster 4. That are the metropolitan connections, and also between metropolitan areas and smaller cities, more distance in the same lines. These high-speed rail connections are generating the earlier stage, these regional metropolitan connections, and also longer distance are generating a new mobility. New mobility that was not possible before the arrival of the high-speed rail system, because they are connecting cities between 30 minutes and 1 hour from the biggest cities, generating a new mobility, especially focused on commuting, but also on tourists and other kind of purposes. Focusing on this metropolitan integration, for instance, the regional high-speed rail covering these relatively short distances at high frequencies from and to big metropolitan areas is a very convenient product for both commuters, and especially for them, but also for tourists. Focusing on the examples around the Madrid metropolitan area, we can find the cases of Toledo and Segovia. There are 2 World Heritage cities categorized by the UNESCO. So they has many tourism amenities and cultural amenities that are distanced less than 100 kilometers from Madrid. So they are more or less integrated in the metropolitan area, and less than 30 minutes of travel time. And these cities has largely promoted their high tourism attractiveness. You can see in the case of Toledo, if we analyze the profile of travelers, more than the 30% of the travelers in high-speed trains are traveling for tourism purposes. But what the high-speed rail has changed is that before tourists arriving to Madrid, especially international tourism visiting Madrid, they need to take a bus and normally spend 1 night in Toledo. Now, the 65% of the passengers can visit the city in 1 day from Madrid. So now Toledo, here is a controversial impact of the high-speed rail for tourism, because Toledo is trying to promote that the visitors stay overnight in the city, and not only for day visits. But this is true on the other side, that the city is increasing and multiplying the number of visitors thanks to this connection. Also, it is key, is very important, the percentage of commuters arriving more than 35%. In 30 minutes of travel time, arriving from Toledo to work to Madrid is sometimes more competitive than living in the peripheral areas of Madrid itself. It's better connected in some cases. So also the commuting is quite important. In the case of Segovia, that is a city located very close to Madrid, is very similar, it has a very similar connection than Toledo with respect to Madrid. The tourists has a similar percentage at 20%, while we have 30% more of passengers traveling for leisure or visiting relatives. But the commuting here is less competitive. Here is the key point of the station location. Segovia has a peripheral in the middle of nowhere station serving the city. So for commuters, for daily travelers, the connection is much less competitive than in the case of Toledo. And that's why for commuters, they prefer other transport modes, or even the activity is less competitive. Another different case with a different perspective is the case of Ciudad Real. Remember, in the first high-speed rail line connecting Madrid to Sevilla. This is a non-touristic city, distant around 200 kilometers from Madrid. That is 55 minutes of travel time by high-speed rail. And this city has promoted other kind of activities because there is no many tourist amenities to be promoted. So they promoted other activities such as administrative or labor activities by attracting professionals who could help to improve, for instance, the university where I'm located here in Ciudad Real, or even the hospital with high-profile professionals arriving to the city to work, or even as a city where workers can use as a dormitory, as a sleeping city for workers arriving to Madrid for work. In this case, the work-related purposes arrived to more than the 60% of the passengers, and more than 30% were for commuting purposes, both for work or study related to the university. Also, the visiting friends and relatives has an importance there. So, in general, with these examples we have already seen, we can see that the transport effects, the change in the mobility patterns generated by the highest speed rail during these 30 years, we have seen that these transport effects has some implications in this accessibility and mobility patterns. But in addition, these transport effects could have some socioeconomic implications that could be related to reinforcement of regional poles and could be associated to the development of local strategies, especially for business, commuters, commuting on or tourism purposes. And of course, both transport and socioeconomic implications are influenced by the station location, as we have seen in the first presentation, and also the integration of this station in the urban and regional scales. Well, for finishing my presentation, I would like to mention the future challenges. We are now looking to the future of the high-speed rail system, and to my view, there are two main important challenges. The first is the liberalization of the rail passengers market. In December 2020, the Spanish high-speed rail market liberalization was legally open to competitors, and finally 3 train operator companies entered the market. Renfe, that is the Spanish national operator, ILSA, that is a consortium between Air Nostrum and Trenitalia, that is the Italian national operator, and the third one is the SNCF, the French national operator, that entered the market with their offer of low-cost services. These operators will be managed with different supply packages defined by the Spanish Railway Infrastructure Administrator. Due to the COVID, the liberalization wasn't be real until May 2021, when the first SNCF low-cost train, the Ouigo, ran in the Madrid-Barcelona line, only in the Madrid-Barcelona line for the moment. From some years before the liberalization, Renfe has been also changing its supply, implementing also their own low-cost services, the so-called ABLO, which started also in June 2021. By the end of this year, 2022, and during all the year 2023, the corridors between Madrid to Valencia and Sevilla will be open also, where they are already legally open to competitors, but the competitors will arrive a little bit later, so during this year, the end of this year and the next year. That is, you have seen what is liberalized are the most profitable high-speed rail connections. So what will happen, some questions I would like to share with you is that, is the liberalization will decrease the ticket prices as has happened in Italy with the competition? And if so, who will be benefit? What will be happen with these intermediate small and medium-sized cities served by regional services? And now the low-cost services, most of them are not stopping in intermediate cities. They are only interested in the most profitable connection, the largest markets. So what will happen with this? And also a key point is if Renfe, the Spanish railway operator, is suffering competition in the most profitable corridors, what happened with the less profitable ones? In terms of crop subsidy, between the balance between the most profitable and the less profitable that now Renfe is doing, but when it starts to lose benefits in the most profitable corridors, so what will be happen with that, the cross subsidies and the public service obligations? So there are many questions we are starting to analyze here with my colleagues in Spain, and I would like to show you some results soon, we expect. And also the new challenge, and to finish my presentation, is due to this changing environment related to smart mobility, shared mobility, is the digitalization and the implementation of the new technologies, mainly oriented to improve user experiences. They are nowadays a key strategy adopted by train operator companies for promoting customers' loyalty, especially in this context of railway liberalization. So Renfe and other train operators companies in France and in Italy or even in Japan and in other international contexts, they are adopting, they are entering the MaaS, the mobility as a service markets, and they would like to be MaaS providers with the implementation of their own MaaS application, giving some extra services to the user related to real-time information, a more competitive ticket application, etc. So, and also in this sense, some other questions arises related to the equity in the same perspective that the liberalization is. This digitalization will be for all, related to both social and spatial equity issues. Not only the people, older people to using these new technologies, how they are going to do that, but also and especially the spatial equity issues related to the implementation in different geographies. You have seen that the intermediate spaces in Spain are very low populated, so they are these implementations adapted to these rural areas, mainly not only focused on shared mobility options, but also on demand transport, for instance, or other more competitive transport services relating the territory to the station. So let's see what's happened in the forthcoming years. And to conclude my presentation, we have seen that in Spain we have a very consolidated transport system, generated mobility and socioeconomic implications, but also now we are facing this changing environment that will require, of course, new strategies to keep this high-speed rail system as a main transport system at different scales and levels. So thank you very much, and I have finished my presentation.
I mute myself. Thank you so much for Amparo. It's great presentation. I think we can see 30 years Spanish experience really has a lot to say and to share. I think we don't really have much time to discuss at the moment. I can see there are questions, comments. Please, feel free to put on your chat. Now, I think we will go to the next speaker, Dr. Guillaume Kehoet. Am I pronouncing right? Guillaume is going to talk about the French, the long story of high-speed rail. So Guillaume is a lecturer in geography and regional planning in RDIF Research Laboratory, University of Perpignan via Domitia, France. So Guillaume's research has been working on transport policy in France, high-speed rail, national, regional transport, especially the new development of night trains. And since his PhD, he conducted research on high-speed rail and impact on in France. So I think without further ado, I would like to welcome Guillaume to talk about French experiences. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Guillaume Carré. Firstly, allow me to introduce myself in a few words. I'm a lecturer in geography and regional planning, and I'm currently work as professor in University of Perpignan via Domitia, located to the south of France, very close to the border of Spain. And I'm also associated to the RDEV laboratory, and RDEV means players, research, players, resources and territories for the development. In my research work, I analyze the relationship between transports, territories, and regional planning, and especially I'm focused on railway intercity transports, and more precisely high-speed train, intercity train, and on the other world, conventional train. And I have a PhD in geography focused on a regional high-speed railway line located to the east of France. I'm going to present you this line after my introduction. At first, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this symposium, especially to Professor Jialin Chen and Becky Pilou, who invite me. I'm very glad to present to you some key highlights of French high-speed rail, a country located between UK and Spain for today. Now I'm going to focus on 4 main topics about the French high-speed rail. Firstly, I will explain the main characteristic of high-speed rail in France. Next, I will present its timeline and specifications, in other words, geographical aspects. Then I will explain the impact of high-speed rail has had on various socioeconomic aspects of the country. And in the part 4, I will share with you the latest elements of context for the French country. And lastly, in conclusion, I will sum up some key highlights for high-speed rail in France. France is one of the first European countries to commence the high-speed rail network. In fact, the first line was from Paris to Lyon, started at the beginning of 1980s. I would like to present to you briefly 3 main features of France's high-speed rail. There is a new infrastructure which currently enables 320 km/h. There is a new, there was a new equipment, the TGV, which represents the jewel of the French railway industry, especially the company Alstom. And it is interesting to know that the conventional trains can't use high-speed railway line, but TGV can go to traditional railway in order to spreading effects of high-speed rail. Three, there are new methods of train operation, such as yield management, reservation required. Moreover, there has been a reduction in the number of stations compared to the traditional railway. That's why, because of these three features, high-speed rail in France is called a ground flight due to its speed, high speed, and train operation, which are very close to air transport at the beginning. In a second